Back with another video, Bad News Brown. Now this is going to be a late video, but I want to give my feedback about the whole Big Meech situation in BMF in a nutshell. So here I go. Well, the first thing is, what do I got to say about Big Meech being released from federal prison? And I guess now he's in a halfway house, of course. Well, first, that's what's up, right on. You see, I got no problem with nobody getting out of jail, prison. As long as you're not in there on no weird stuff. And as we know, Big Meech wasn't in there on no real weird stuff, so right on. And I'm sure we'll be hearing from Meech. I'm sure we got a lot of ideas, a lot of projects or whatnot. So here's to that. Now, there is talk, I would say, about there's been a pattern of, let's just say, the authorities releasing ex-drug kingpins as opposed to people who were, I'm going to say, active during the civil rights movement in the 70s or whatever. And what I got to say to that, and I'll get more into that, but yeah, that's the truth. And that doesn't surprise me at all, as we should know why. And like I said, I'll get more into that, but I just kind of want to talk a little bit more about Big Meech and the whole BMF thing, because, and this is not to glorify it at all, but they was doing their thing when it comes to that. They was getting that 80s money in the 90s and 2000. Of course, adjusted for inflation. And what I mean by 80s money, for those that don't know, of course, unfortunately, that's when the crack epidemic hit the majority of inner cities in America. So it was an influx of drugs, but there was an influx of opportunity. So there was a lot of people making money. The average street hustler could make $5,000-$10,000 a day, easy. And although it was at the expense of the community, as we'll learn in the future, but it was a lot of money being made for a lot of people. So that's what I mean by saying they was getting 80s money in the 90s, 2000, which was, some would say, was damn near impossible. So I first got hip on Big Meech and the whole BMF thing when I was doing a little county time. And we read, of course, but I read in there and out here, but I just got finished reading the 5 Families about the Mafia, so I was kind of like on that hype, and came across this book about BMF, but this book was about the Philly BMF. And the Philly BMF, for those that don't know, was like in the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s. There was some cats out of the nation that was pushing the line in Philly. And they was pushing a hard line, in the book described about that. And also into the 80s and 90s, they offspring, and this is the Philly area, I believe it was Junior Mafia. And I read this book a while back, but anyway, and again, I'm not sure the link between the whole Meech and the Philly BMF. I don't know if Meech and them just took the name because it was cool, or is there some type of link? I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But that's not the point. But before I continue reading that book, I also discovered who Frank Matthews was. Now, for those that don't know who that is, Frank Matthews, let's just say he's the one that got away, which is probably why you don't hear too much about him in only recent date because of the internet and stuff. But as far as the major outlets, they'll give you the Nicky Barneses and the everybody else and the Escobars and all that. They wouldn't too much mention about this guy. And he was a brother. Actually, when you see the movie American Gangster and Denzel, a lot of that depiction of Frank Lucas was actually Frank Matthews. From the boxing to the meetings to the sewing up the heroin trade, yeah, that was Frank. And again, he got away, and to this day. So hey, that's when I first figured out who he was, and I never even heard of him. So even then, when I was reading it, I'm like, this is the real Frank. You understand? And I figured out instantly why they mentioned the other Frank instead of that Frank. But again, that's that. So I figured out a lot of stuff reading that book, learning about that book. But ironically, I would have mentioned going back to the Meeks, you know what I'm saying, Black Mafia, because according to the book, as we already know, Big Meech and them, they was getting that 80s money, like I said. And ironically, because it was two crews, you know, Meech's crew and his brother's crew. And according to the book, they used to go back and forth. Because bruh getting that Meech like, man, y'all a little too flamboyant, y'all a little too loud, y'all stunting too hard, want to draw attention. And it's crazy because, and they would go back and forth according to the book, but ironically, it was somebody from his brother crew that basically drew the straw that broke the camel's back as opposed to Meech's crew, and it's ironically. But nevertheless, both of the brothers out or whatever, and of course, I don't know them personally. And again, this is not to uh, highlight or big up a mob type lifestyle. You know what I mean? But it's just to really give my input on it. Now this goes back to the pattern of them releasing the so-called big time D boys as opposed to freedom fighters and people who stood up for justice. And I mean, of course, that's definitely not right. And this is not to smite anybody who the feds let out. You understand? I don't know your personal situation, whether you just got out or you got out with a wire. Hey, that's on you. So I'm not, again, this is not to smite any brother or any person that got out on them laws and then you wasn't no freedom fighter. But again, back to the whole pattern, it just don't surprise me, and that's pretty much what I gotta say about that. And it shouldn't surprise you. Now, of course, something needs to be done, but that's, as we see, going to take place on a more grassroots level as opposed to appealing to the higher ups. You understand, in my opinion. But yeah, man, that's a shame, man. I'm hoping it's just a coincidence. I definitely wouldn't like it if it's some whole, and I doubt it. Definitely not everybody, but who's to say, man? It could be a few people, man, who got released and they got certain instructions. That's all I'm gonna put it. You know what I'm saying? Let's just hope not. And I ain't talking about the federal guidelines, parole instructions. I'm talking about with additional orders. You understand? That would definitely don't surprise me. And that shouldn't surprise you. And again, this ain't casting no shade or doubt on anybody, especially Meeching him, because that's what this video is about. But anybody, for that matter. But I'm just putting it all out there, giving you something to think about. Because that's what you should. You should be, thinking all avenues when it comes to life, all possibilities. Now, you don't dwell on it because your thoughts ain't you. It can be you, but your thoughts ain't you. And that's a whole different video entirely. But, I guess right on. Not I guess, but yeah, man, right on for Big Meech getting out there. I don't see nothing wrong with it, you understand? He wasn't in there on no weird stuff, so, man, he caught a case, a D case, or whatever. That happens every day, so I'm glad to see somebody get up out there. There's plenty of other brothers under these unjust laws, and that's a whole other thing entirely. Hell, really by that definition, going back to the 10-point platform, everybody in jail, for the most part is in there on some other stuff, some unjust, especially when it comes to the African Americans. You understand? So we done been railroaded so many times. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, again, I'm so glad he come back because there's one less black. Yeah, those from the town know what I'm talking about. Shout out. This Bad News Brown breaking it down for y'all one time, man. I'm going to be back at y'all with some more material. And again, man, y'all can let me know, man, what y'all want me to talk about because it's so much and I'll be busy too. I wanna post every day. And eventually I will. I'm actually gonna post multiple times a day. But I got a lot going on, on my man stuff, as you should be too. So and we're gonna keep it lit for sure, man.